Have you ever had a weird feeling about someone, and later found out you were right? Maybe they smiled at you, but something just didn't feel real. Or maybe a friend kept saying, "I'm good," but deep down, you knew they weren't. Here's the crazy part. Most people would have missed those little clues. But you didn't. You noticed the tiny pause before they answered. The fake laugh that lasted just a second too long. The way their energy changed, even when their words didn't. And honestly, you probably didn't even mean to notice it. Your brain just picked it up. Now, people might tell you, you're overthinking. Or, you're reading too much into it. But what if that's not what's happening? What if your brain is simply paying attention to details that most people naturally ignore? Psychologists have found that people don't all notice the world the same way. Some people focus on the obvious. Others automatically pick up on small changes in expressions, tone of voice, body language, and behavior. It's not because they're trying to judge people. Their minds are simply wired to connect little pieces of information faster. Sounds like a superpower, right? Well, not exactly. Because the same ability that helps you understand people can also become the reason you feel mentally exhausted. Think about this. You hang out with friends for a couple of hours. Everyone else goes home feeling great. But you? You keep replaying the whole night in your head. Why did they suddenly get quiet? Why did they answer like that? Did I say something weird? Sometimes you're just curious. Other times, your brain refuses to let it go. And that's the hidden cost of noticing too much. Your mind doesn't just collect information. It tries to make sense of every little detail. And the more dots it finds, the more it wants to connect them. Sometimes those connections are right. Sometimes they're completely wrong. The problem is, your brain doesn't know the difference until much later. And that's where this hidden trait starts to change the way you see the world. So, where does this trait come from? Believe it or not, it doesn't always start the same way. For some people, it's just how they've always been. Even as kids, they noticed things other people brushed off. A teacher who looked stressed. A friend pretending to smile. A parent saying, "Everything's fine," when it clearly wasn't. Without even trying, their brain kept collecting those little clues. Over time, it got really good at spotting patterns. But for other people, life taught them to notice everything. Maybe they grew up around a lot of arguments. Maybe they never knew what mood someone would be in when they walked through the front door. So their brain learned to stay alert. Not because it wanted to. Because it had to. It started watching faces. Listening to voices. Trying to figure out if today was going to be a good day, or a bad one. The wild part? Even years later, that habit doesn't just disappear. Your brain keeps scanning every room like it's still looking for the next clue. That's why you can sometimes tell someone's mood before they even say a single word. You notice the tiny sigh. The forced smile. The silence that lasts just a little too long. And while everyone else keeps talking, you're already thinking. Something's different. Now, sometimes that feeling is spot on. But here's where this trait can mess with you. Just because your brain notices every clue, doesn't mean every clue actually means something. And that's a trap a lot of people fall into without even realizing it. So how do you know when to trust your gut? And when your mind is simply filling in the blanks? That's the part almost nobody talks about. Here's a simple test. Think about the last time you met someone new. Most people remember what they were wearing. Maybe their name. Maybe what they do for work. But your brain? It remembers the little stuff. How they smiled, then quickly looked away. How excited they sounded, until someone walked into the room. How they kept saying they were totally fine, while constantly tapping their foot. You don't just hear words. You notice what doesn't match. And that's because your brain is always asking one question. Does this make sense? When someone's words and actions don't match, your mind notices. When someone's mood suddenly changes, your mind notices. When a person acts completely different around different people, yep, your mind notices that too. Now here's where it gets tricky. The more often you're right, the more you start trusting every feeling you get. That's when your brain can accidentally fool you. Maybe your friend replies 2 hours late. Your brain says, they're mad at me. Maybe your boss walks past without saying hi. Your brain goes, did I mess something up? Maybe your partner seems a little quieter than usual. Now your mind starts creating 10 different stories, even though none of them have been confirmed. See the problem? People who notice too much don't usually struggle because they see more. They struggle because their brain hates unanswered questions. It wants every missing piece, every explanation, every reason. And until it gets one, it keeps searching. That's why one tiny moment can stay in your head for hours, sometimes even days. But here's the good news. Once you understand how this trait works, you stop believing every thought your brain throws at you. And that one change can make all the difference. So, does that mean noticing too much is a bad thing? Not at all. In fact, it can become one of your biggest strengths. People with this trait are often the first to realize when someone needs help. They can tell when a friend is pretending to be okay. They notice when a teammate is quietly struggling. They catch problems early, sometimes before anyone else even sees them coming. That's a pretty amazing skill. But only if you know how to use it. Because here's the mistake a lot of people make. They think noticing something means they have to fix it. They feel responsible for everyone's mood, everyone's problems, everyone's pain. And without realizing it, they start carrying emotional weight that was never theirs to carry. Think about that for a second. Just because you notice someone's bad day doesn't mean it's your job to make it disappear. Just because you can see someone's hidden pain doesn't mean you have to carry it on your shoulders. The truth is, you can care about people without carrying every burden they have. That's called having boundaries. And honestly, it's one of the hardest lessons people with this trait ever learn. Because your brain will always notice. That's probably never going to change. But what can change is what you choose to do with what you notice. You don't have to chase every strange feeling. You don't have to solve every mystery. And you definitely don't have to blame yourself for every little thing that feels off. Sometimes, a bad mood is just a bad mood. A short text is just a short text. A quiet moment is simply a quiet moment. Think about your phone. It gets hundreds of notifications every day, but you don't open every single one. Your brain works the same way. You don't have to react to every signal. Not every strange look needs an explanation. Not every silence is about you. So if you've always noticed the little things, don't see it as a weakness. It's a rare ability. Just make sure it works for you, not against you. And if you enjoy learning how your mind really works, subscribe to Mr. Braino. I'll see you in the next one.